Yeah. All right. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Letterform Lectures. Let's watch as the people roll in here, Yoann. Hi, everybody. Letterform Lectures Online Edition 2023. My name's Grendel. I'm Education Director at Letterform Archive, which is also the home of Type West, our School of Type Design. And we have an international audience today, as usual, so please type where you're coming from in our chat. And also, you can let us know what brought you here today. Why are you interested in Breton fishing figures? If you have questions for our speaker, you can drop those in the Q&A, and we'll have a question and answer session at the end. I want to first give a huge shout out to Skilla Zaccolini. Skilla is doing all the heavy lifting to make this lecture series possible. So thank you, Skilla.
Thank you, Skilla.
Okay. Yes, she's the best. Welcome to Letterform Lectures 2023. So we put these informative lectures on 12 times a year to round out our Type West students' education. And we'll let you know more about that program in a minute. But first, let me fill you in on some upcoming events. Type knitting. This workshop will keep you in stitches as you knit up your favorite fonts. Just in time for the winter holidays. If you learn type knitting, you will have so many cozy gift ideas for your friends. Sign up now for this super fun class. Next up in our Letterform lecture series on Halloween, we have a Mexican black letter specialist, Jesus Barrientos Mora, and he will take us on a guided tour of some of the most spooky black letter signs in Puebla, Mexico. So don't miss that Halloween special. All right, Letterform Archive is the home of Type West, our School of Type Design. If you are looking to expand your typographic toolbox, or you're interested in learning how to develop your own original typefaces, perhaps you've always dreamed of starting your own type foundry, or maybe you're a graphic designer who just wants to take your type skills to the next level, consider applying to Type West. Our 2024 postgraduate certificate program in type design is offered both in San Francisco in person and online to students all around the world. And both programs are accepting applications now through November 6th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. If you would like to learn more about our programs and what we're looking for in an applicant, go to our website. And also, Skill is going to drop a link to the students' websites. Our past students create websites of their typefaces, so you can check those out too. We are offering one full BIPOC/equity scholarship for each cohort, so please don't hesitate to apply no matter what your situation. And of course, if you have questions, please DM us. Our DMs are always open, so slide right on in. Okay, here's the deadline. Don't miss it. Letterformarchive.org/education for more info. And for more information on upcoming Letterform lectures, our salon series, our exhibitions, other upcoming workshops and events as they happen, go here, letarc.org/events. And better yet, become a member of Letterform Archive today and help keep great lectures like this one going. Last but not least, follow us on Instagram, stay on top of our upcoming events, and just see cool stuff. All right. Letterform Lectures are co-presented by the Letterform Archive and the SFPL Book Arts and Special Collections. Yay, libraries. Letterform Archive is a nonprofit institution that houses over 100,000 works of graphic design history. We are dedicated to the art and the craft of the letterform. You can view all our lectures online soon after they happen. Just go to our website, letterformarchive.org. All right. Without further ado, let's welcome our speaker today, Yoann De Roeck. Yoann is a designer who taught at ESSAD Amiens, and who has been working on a thesis in epigraphy under Alice Savoy. And he's here today to tell us a bit about his research. Yoann, your subject is about fishermen in Brittany.
Yeah.
Is it in your family history?
No, not at all. As far as I know, I don't have any relatives that worked in the fishing industry. I don't think so.
Okay, but you must live, you lived in Brittany, right? You're from
No,
Brittany?
not exactly. So now I'm living in the Paris suburbs for 25 years, so I'm a bit far away from the sea now.
Okay, and you speak Breton naturally.
No, not a word. I'm sorry, Grendel, not a word in Breton. But I swear, one day I will learn. Maybe.
I hear it's kind of tough, so you're gonna have to start studying now. But you must be a sailor, right? You love the sea, you sail.
No, I'm not. Well, of course, I like a bit sailing with friends, but I'm not a good seaman at all. No.
Okay, well, this is talking about fishing figures, so you must like fish, right? You like fish?
And no, I'm
Sardines.
sorry. No, I don't eat fish neither. No.
Okay, well, help us out here, Yoann. Are you even interested in this topic at all?
Well, Grendel, I've been living with this topic for mostly 5 years now. Every day in the morning, I wake up with it. And this is my home now. I mean, I know those fishermen, I know those old photos. This is my people. Yes, I love my topic, and I'd be glad to introduce you if you want to.
Take it away. Let's do it, Yoann. Merci.
Okay, merci. Is it okay for you? You can see my slide?
Can't yet.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Grendel. Thank you, Letterform Archive team and Type West. Well, such an international audience for a very local and small subject. Well, between fishing and lettering, that's it. The story I am about to tell you took place nearly 2 centuries ago on the coast of Brittany. Brittany is a peninsula in France that moves into the Atlantic Ocean.
Yoann,
yes?
Your slides.
I'm
your
sorry?
Slides aren't showing. Your slides aren't showing yet.
Alors, share. Yeah, I will share desktop too. And I'm reading now. Is it okay for you now?
Not yet.
Is it okay now?
Now, yes.
You are seeing the map? No problem?
Yes.
Forgive me. Okay. Finistère is this west part, which means the end of the earth. It's a place where the largest sardine fishing ports were located at the end of the 19th century. And before we talk about characters and letter forms, and for those of you who have never eaten sardines in a can, here is a short instruction manual. Well, you're starting in June, you get up around 4 in the morning, and with 5 or 6 good fellows, you head out into the bay to cast your nets, okay? And if you're lucky enough and have a good nose, you'll be able to catch tons of this little silverfish. And then you head back to the port really quickly, and you even have to race the other chaloupe. Chaloupe is longboats, because of course the first to arrive will get the best prices and will be sure to sell his catch. And once you get in the slipway, well, the sardines, they are taken out, the nets cleaned with seawater, and they must not be damaged at all. They must shine to be sold well. The fish is arranged in wicker baskets, and each basket must contain exactly 1,000 units. And the women, they are the buyers. They work for the cannery, the industry, the factory, and they have there a great responsibility because they estimate the quality, of course, they set the price, and they work with a crew or another. The women, the buyers, they don't give money to the fishermen, but tokens. And these tokens can be quickly exchanged for cash. And now the men's work is done for the day, and they go straight to the bar without going home, because the bar is not just a place to drink and play cards, but it is mostly the business office where the patron is the boss, the ship owner. The patron shares money with the crew and recruits other people. And sometimes the owner of the bar, generally it's a woman and sometimes a widow herself, she is also the accountant for the crew, and she has often shares in the boat. And meanwhile, at the factory, the women start working on the fish. The sardines are washed, dried in the sun, and then fried in boiling oil. And they are then placed in metal cans. And these women, often young girls, work up 15 until 18 hours a day. They are paid according to the volume, every 1,000 sardines, not the time spent. And to keep them awake, they sing all day, in Breton, of course. And now sealing the cans is a man's job. They are not fishermen, but skilled workers, we can say, tinsmiths. They are using a soldering iron, and they make each can hermetic. Et voilà. They can flood now the market in France, but only and abroad. Because the Breton sardine was quite famous at the time throughout the world. It is high quality protein, it is cheap, it is easy to transport and carry, and it is imperishable. So this is perfect food for soldiers during the American Civil War, for example. Well, now enough about fish, let's talk about lettering. As you said, my topics begins in 1853, okay, when a law forced all fishermen to mark their boats. This picture, for instance, it dates precisely from this year, 1853. It is a calotype taken in the north of France, not Brittany, but the north of France, by Henri Le Sec. And you can see that the main boat has nothing written on its bow, okay? But if you take a look at the small rowboat in the foreground, on its sterns, which means at the back, you can read two things. Its name on the left, which is Charles, you see it, Charles there, and on the other side, the name of the home port, which is Dieppe, the port of Dieppe in the north of France. Those are the stern marks at the back of the ship. They are much older than the obligation to display a registration number. On the very left edge of the picture, we can make out a number there, 08. This is the oldest registration number ever seen on a picture. But first of all, let's talk about the stern marks, okay? The name and the home port at the back of the vessel. This obligation, it dates back to the French Revolution. But at the time, the decree didn't say much about how to do so. It says only you have to use white oil on a black background, okay, with letters 4 inches high, which is more or less 10 centimeters. But there is not a word about spacing, not a word about the width of the character, the weight to employ, and there is nothing about the style, the letter form to use. Well, sailors, they have always chosen the name of their boats with great care because it reveals the mentality of the patron. And on this picture, for instance, you can read François et Louis, either the boat's partner or more likely the children of the family. But often the name is a way to give thanks to a saint, Saint Joseph, for example, or most of all, Virgin Mary, who is considered to be the true protector of sailors. And can you see the reverse contrast on the letter capital M there and A? Well, this means you just have to keep in mind that at the time, many fishermen just can't read or write. Sainte Anne, which is also a big hit, but all names are not religious. Look at this one, humanité, humanity. And on this close-up, it is quite obvious that the mark is not only painted, but also carved into the wood. Just with a pocket knife, I guess, in a rough way, we may say. But This is interesting because each time the boat is washed or has to be careened, the marks can be found again and easily repainted. On this one, the endless name there, n'insultez pas la République, don't insult Republic. And this one is called Lénine. Well, it's a bit sinking, but it's a paradox. Fishermen in Finistère are both very religious and anti-clerical people. They can go to church, yes, say their prayers with deep faith, okay, and still have socialist political ideas. Amoureuse. This one is called amoureuse, it means lover, she's in love. And this word is perfectly executed, painted in a very regular, carefully letter-spaced black letter. So I wonder, did an illiterate fisherman really do this on its own? I'm not so sure. Anyway, by mid-century, the name on the stern was no longer enough for the French authorities because there was a serious problem in the English Channel, la guerre des huîtres. La guerre des huîtres, the oyster war or oyster riots, as you like. The Channel Islands is a small English archipelago very close to the French coast there. And nobody knows who has the right to fish for oyster and who does not. This is a maritime border problem that still remains today, and even the Brexit couldn't change anything about it. So, the two countries, Kingdom of England and France, decided to sign an agreement in order to identify the vessel's nationality. And in 1853, the decree was finally applied in France, and now every boat has to display a registration initial letter and a number on its bow, both sides of its bow, I mean in front of the boat. And this is in addition to the stern marks, of course. This time, the instructions in the law are a little more precise. We add the size of the letters, and now we have also the width of the stems, which means we have the weight to employ. For small rowboats, for instance, it shall be 25 centimeters high and 4 centimeters thick. But we still don't have a clue for the letter form to employ. Is it a sans serif? Is it a modern face? Is it a slab? We don't know. And we have no clue, no indication for letter spacing. Now, if you want to join me, you put on your boots and your custom caps and you come with me. We are going around Finistère for a small tour just to check if fishermen have done their job or not. And we are starting with this photograph, which is one showing the oldest sardine longboats in Brittany. It was taken in 1857. We are only 4 years after the decree, okay? And at first glance, you can see that there is no registration number on the hull. Well, the fine at the time was around 25 francs, okay? Which was quite a lot of money for those poor devils. But if you get a little closer to the picture, you can notice a few, I don't know if you can see them, but a few tiny marks there where the number should be. And in fact, I understand that those boats are currently being refit. You see the brazier there where the coal tar is eating. So there is just a new layer of black tar applied on the hull that erases the number of those two boats. Same series of photographs. We are again in 1857, but this time in the port of Concarneau. And as you approach this fantastic shot, you can clearly see the first registration ever photographed in Brittany, QC 1817, very well executed. And look at the regularity of the characters, and especially the repeated figure 1. It gives really the impression that the markings was done by a professional. I mean, a sign painter or someone. The numbers there, they are lined up, okay, tightly set, we can say. There is a small dot that separates the initial letters from the number. QC is for Quimper-Concarneau. Quimper is the largest town and Concarneau is a small port. So the initial letter is QC. And there is also a full stop at the end of the number. I don't see really the purpose of it, but we are still in 1857. Now in a port called Douarnenez, very next to Concarneau, very neighbor. And on this picture, the marks are very small. I'm sorry, it's a bit blurry. I can't go no further into the photograph, but I can feel, and I don't know if you have the same feeling, of a kind of lack of care in the painting there. And there is certainly, to me, no typographical template behind these. There is no model behind this. So in short, here are two cases, one in Concarneau on the left, and the other in Douarnenez on the right, okay, from the exact same period, which is only 4 years after the decree was applied, okay? So what can explain such a difference in treatment between those two? One explanation might be, I said might be, that in Concarneau, the fish cannery, they set up a little earlier than in Douarnenez. And there, the factory bosses, they were also ship owners. I mean, they had their own fleets, okay, that worked directly for them. And on this picture, you can see that under the registration number, you have a painted cross there, we can see it all. It's nothing else but the logo of the company, okay? And the small number there, 29.7, it just indicates the position of the boat in the fleet. So we can guess that the cannery bosses, they wanted all their fleet to be marked in the same way. So yeah, we are talking about branding, ship branding, okay? And this can explain, well, the quality of Concarneau's lettering in the early days. Now, let's fast forward until the years 1880s, okay? All the longboats now, they look the same size. There are either a black hull, a small white liston. The liston is the stripe that runs there under the gunwale, okay? And they have, of course, their registration number. And when the photograph is good enough, I redraw the characters. Well, of course, this is my interpretation. There is a lot of subjectivity in it, and I'm not a type designer, but it helps. It helps me a lot to just get away from the detail of the photo and to compare shapes, okay? And I've noticed that in the years 1885, we can say that the Dido family, the Dido style is clearly the basis of these letter forms, okay? So now why this historical model rather than another? I can't tell. I'm not sure. And we don't know because there was never any directive to do so. Remember the law, the decree, it only mentions the dimensions and the color. And we've already talked about that. There is not a word about the letter form, not a word about Dido or modern face or a kind of style to employ. But the Dido was there. And in the same year, 1885, on this very old postcard, you can see one of the first instances of the Dido, but being a bit twisted. We are going close to this long boat there. This is a huge close-up. And you can see that, okay, the modern style was used to write this D1307, but the fisherman there decided, I don't know why, this was the greatest idea, but he decided to add small central ornaments in the middle of the stems and the bowls there. We can talk about pearls ornament, or what we called in France alphabet à boules, which was in catalogs for sign painters at the time. The same year, on the very same picture, there are also ships displaying registration in black letter. It's much rarer, it's true, but there are atoms that are clearly visible. And what is quite interesting there is that the figures are also transformed just to fit the Gothic script dictus. It's quite clever. So we can say that around 1885, there are three main styles to be found in Douarnenez. The pure didot, okay, the black letter, and a few attempts to, I don't know how to say, to twist the modern face. Here is a detail on the three initials. And less than 5 years later, this is what has become of the Douarnenez initial D, okay? This is a strange glyph with extensions in the shape of a fish hook, which is quite illegible to those who meet it for the first time, okay? We call it the D fish or fish-shaped D. And there are still few cases in black letter. They still exist, but now it's only for the letter. I'm sorry, the picture is a bit blurred, but well, the figures, they seem to evolving in a different way. They remain quite faithful to the didot, the contrast, okay, but they seem to becoming rounder, more flexible, we might say, and the serif of figure 1 there is gradually taking on the shape of what we call a double barb. Barb is the pointed part of the fish hook. So we can say that in those years, 1890, no matter the kind of initials, okay, the figures, they seem to point in the same direction. And in fact, if we take a close look at digit 1 over this period, we can see that the year 1886 is a turning point for the characters with a vertical stem. I mean, 1, figure 4, figure 7. This is the birth of what we call now the alphabet à barbes, barbe alphabet, or chiffres pêchants, which can be translated by fishing figures. But before carrying on the fishing figures, I'd like to please let me make a brief aside about the Gothic script style, because it's important. And even though it didn't last, and that's true that it didn't last in Douarnenez, its presence remains really interesting in the genesis of the fishing figures. That's what makes me doubt or wonder sometimes about the purely vernacular aspect of this style. Because this D, for example, okay, I'm sorry, the photograph is quite bad resolution, but I draw it there. This D is extremely sophisticated. I mean, you need to know the structure of black letter and its many ornaments, strokes, and so on to design a glyph like this. I mean, it can't be improvised. Look on this picture, look at the wish, the desire to link visually the letter and the figures. Same height, of course, same contrast, and same swatches. It matches quite well. Another one, here again, fine example of harmony between letters and number. And those are some few cases over 20 years. Well, that's the end of the parenthesis on black letter, but for me, it was, I think, black letter was an impetus for the birth of the barb style, really. And now we're going back to the year 1900, around 1900, the black letter was finally and totally dropped, okay? And it was a D fish, the fish-shaped D that won the competition for the most beautiful initial letter. And almost all sailors adopted it. But with some variations. Okay, the structure is in place, but each one interprets this character with more or less ornamentation or sobriety. And here are some few examples from the end of the 19th century. D191. The style is very well stabilized now. The extensions of the one, they go very far to the left and the right, and round digits such as numeral 9 there, it opens up, okay? And the stroke seems to be disconnected from the bulb there. The punctuation is a small clover or clubs, I don't know, but it's an allusion to the card game, no doubt about this. And this emblem there is often to be found on longboats because a 5-pointed star or sometimes 6-pointed star, which symbolize the Stella Maris, which is the Virgin Mary. Those are other fine examples of harmonizing letters and figures. And in the background there, near the face of the moose, the ship boy there is one very beautiful, highly ornated D. Other examples, D189 with a little clover there again. And this is a small selection, just for visual enjoyment. Now, unfortunately, there is no, to my knowledge, of course, there is no photograph of someone designing or carving a registration number. I only found images of men repainting them. And it was often young boys and even children who took care of the paintwork. The glyphs, they were carved so deeply into the wood that it was really easy to repaint them without spilling over, you know. So on this picture, there is a young boy there, maybe 15 years old, I don't know. He's just putting some white oil paint inside the glyphs there. It was taken in 1912 or 1913, I don't know, but maybe the last summer before World War I. When the war came in Europe, almost French sailors, you need to understand that French sailors were above all military men. And when the war came, they were sent on army vessels. And so the shipbuilding industry and the fishing industry almost stopped until the year 1920s, okay? This longboat there was attacked by a German U-boat in 1916. And the skipper was killed and a member of the crew too. And this tragedy gives us a unique opportunity to see such an old mark in close-up because the photographer there, Jacques de Tézac, he got as close as possible to the damage. And now we can note and see the engraving of the sign in the wood. You can notice the length of the barbs there. And look at figure 3, what a beauty there. It has a very sophisticated top bar there, really beautiful, with a kind of a weird curly ornament that is hanging from the top bar. This is beautiful, like a cap. Well, this case, the D2139, we can say that during this period, I mean, just before the First World War, the style was at its climax. I mean, the balance of the weight, the sensitivity of the drawing, and the perfect, above all, to me, the perfect letter spacing. This case is also a fantastic opportunity for us to understand the construction, I mean, the way it was built, because each figure seems to be inscribed in a circle, with the exception of the fishing figures. I mean, look at digit 1 there and the letter D. They need 2 circles to be built. And when it's done, all you have to do for the horizontal distribution of the glyphs, it is to measure from one center to another. Okay, you don't have to get mad with kerning, or I don't know how to call it, from one edge to another, but only from center to center. This is clever. This is easy. Well, we are still during the war, and the French authorities, they asked the fishermen now to significantly increase the size of the numbers, which means, by the way, and that's quite interesting, that everyone was aware of a reading problem with those fishing figures, okay? And now you can notice how carelessly the temporary marks were made there. And you can note also that figure 1, there, and figure 7, they have serif, okay, but they are not barbed serif. Heresy. Now let's move to another port, not far away. It's called Sainte-Marine. We are still during the war in 1916. On this photograph, you can see the boat Q3912. And here again, the original mark can be seen under the new one because it's carved into the wood, okay? And in this example, you don't get the feeling that it was painted in a hurry or without care. To me, it seems more that it was made by someone with really poor skills in reading and writing. And this person who tried as best he could to copy the original model just in front of him, the carved one. And to me, this tells us quite an important thing. The one who painted these large numerals can't be the same person who made the beautiful original mark. Well, in another photograph, this is lucky for us, but the same boat was just shot once again in the port of Sainte-Marine, Q3912, and this time the large temporary marking has been removed. I mean, repainted with black, you can see it there. And the boat, it gets back the original lettering, repainted in white. On the same picture, you can notice a man there, okay, surrounded by children. And this picture is unique because we witness a scene. Well, a fisherman is erasing the temporary markings. We are now in 1918 and the war is over. So now we are going to look at how the style of fishing figure spread along the Breton coast after 1910 and mostly after the war, okay? Well, it's just a short journey through images. I won't have much to say, you just sit and watch. And we start with the maritime district of Audierne with initial letter A. This is it. Another one dating from the early 1890s. Okay, those styles are quite different, but as soon as we get to the year 1910, what we can see, a magnificent picture of Philippe Dacier showing a black letter A. And this black letter became the real monogram, the real logo for all the fleet in the port of Audierne. And now you can see how deeply it's carved. And it shows well also the wish, the desire to match the forms there between the letter and the fishing figures. We are still in Audierne, but a decade later, and you can also see the Gothic script and the fishing figures. We are now moving to Sainte-Marine, we've already talked about. And Sainte-Marine, the initial letter was Q for Quimper, okay? And on this photograph, I mean, you don't need to be an expert in type or an historian of typography to work out that the registration number was made using a stencil. The Q and the 0 there, they have tenons, I don't know how you say, bridges, spaces that indicates clearly the tool used. And the figure 4 there, even it doesn't have a diagonal stroke. The Q is nothing else but the 0 with a tail, a tilde tail added. What is surprising is that the use of stencil doesn't mean that fishermen of Sainte-Marine were against or were fighting against the fishing figure style. No, if you look at this case, you can still note that the stencil were used, but the digit 7 has 2 extensions, barb extensions. It is one last example from the port of Sainte-Marine, and there, this boat is called Beg-Ir in Breton. In Breton, Beg-Ir means long mouth because it has a pointed bow, as you can see there. And what did the fisherman? It decided to rotate each stencil just to give an axis for each character there parallel to this bow, to the bow there. This is, I mean, so elegant and clever. We are now off to Concarneau. And Concarneau, you need to understand, it's a major sardine port, which was in serious competition with Douarnenez. Competition for fish, of course, but also for letterforms, because the sailors of Concarneau, they never really adopted the same shapes. They have developed their own style, a bit thinner and a bit sharper too. Look at this, in this fantastic shot by Jean-Marie Villard. You can take a look at the style of different eras, and this one is the style of Concarneau around 1900, okay? The Dido is still the basis of the script, right? The figure 2 there and the figure 0, they are the same than in Douarnenez or Audierne, okay? But the 4 there and the 7, they are calligraphic. And this style can only be found in Concarneau. And note the care taken to engrave this star like a bas-relief. I mean, its branches, they seem to revolve, to rotate around the center, and it was probably painted yellow or even gold. Now, before the war, the style in Concarneau was incredibly accomplished, we can say. The contrast was extreme, the characters were carefully spaced, and we have highly sophisticated and even typographically sophisticated details, such as this punctuation, which is a semicolon. And this figure 7, beautiful one. You can see that before the war, it has its 2 extensions. So finally, it adopted the fishing figure style, we can say, but it's still only you can only find this kind of figures in Concarneau, to me. We are now leaving Finistère and we are going to Lorient. Lorient is a large military port. So this is a letter L on old longboats, very random markings, we can say. And this is how what it has become just before the war. This is a kind of initial letter that could be seen in Lorient. And opposite Lorient, we have an island that is called l'Île de Groix, the Isle of Groix, with letter capital G. And there the boats are much larger because they are not fishing for sardine, but for tuna. And on this portrait of crew, you can see, so the registration number there, with also a kind of scale in the alignment of figures. And this is what has become of the initial letter G after the war. The barbed style was adopted in Groix and even taken to extremes, I mean, in decoration. Some more samples of the evolution of the style in the Isle of de Groix. Those are drawn by a good friend of mine, Henri Kérizit. Thank you, Henri. We are now moving souther to another island, much bigger than l'île de Groix. It's Belle-Île, Belle-Île-en-Mer, initial letter BI there. And here, what happens to the figures and letters a few years later? We are still in Belle-Île, but with there a boat coming from the maritime district of Auray. This boat is called a synagogue, and initial letter A for Auray. And there we can see it's very simple, to be polite. It's even clumsy, we can say. But a few years later, this is other instances of boats from Auray. And there's a black letter A, which is really similar to the one in Odian, you remember. And this is one reason why the authorities have decided to add a second letter to the registration number. And from 1926 onwards, it will be A plus U for Odian, AU, and A plus Y for Auray, just to avoid confusing them. And now we are leaving Brittany behind, okay? We head down to the Atlantic façade until Les Sables d'Olonne. This is also a major shipbuilding place and a Sardine industry center. And this is LS, Les Sables. LS marks before 1900. And this is for the first time, so we are out of Brittany. This is for the first time we met a sans serif marks used as a basis, we can say. But a few decades later, under the influence of the Bretons, because the Breton fishermen, they went until the Sables d'Olonne and even Towser. This is how the style evolved in Les Sables d'Olonne. Okay. Now, I have some more time. Okay, 5 or 10 minutes left. I'd like to talk. We've been talking about how the style spread along the coast. Yes, but how? I mean, fishermen, they met everywhere, especially in what we call port of call. Port of call is a place where they all stop to take shelter, to rest, to maintain and refit their boats, right? And these junction ports, they are an ideal place for technical and cultural exchanges, right? But it doesn't explain the speed of the contagion of the style and how the shapes really traveled. If you look at this photograph, well, you can make out another registration number carved, okay, just underneath the painted one. So you have A816 and beneath you have Q3205. Here again, other case, a previous number that is perfectly legible. And this boat is therefore a used one, I mean a second-hand boat, which has been resold. And when a boat moves from one maritime district to another, it must change registration number. On this picture, too, this longboat there from Concarneau, CC for Concarneau, belonged to a fisherman from Douarnenez who sold it in 1911. You can see D835. The name remains Nicolas II, okay, never changed, but the number has to change. And this example, this one is particularly interesting. You can make out the engraved mark there, just before and around the initial letter, right? When you consult the register, the books that describes the life of the boat, we can learn that it was originally a boat from Le Guilvinec, initials G and V there, okay? And it was sold to a patron from Audierne, A plus U, the second letter, remember, after the war. And as figure 4 is common to both number, this is luck, nothing else, well, the new owner has kept it, okay? So the figure 4 is still the same. Everything has changed but the 4. And same thing here with this boat in the port of Camaret. Camaret, initial letter C. This boat belonged to a patron of Douarnenez, once again. And as the digit 7 this time is common to both registrations, the fisherman, he decided to shift the mark, to the left, a bit to the left, so that the number 7 will fall exactly in the right place. This is quite brilliant, no? So you can see he shifted all onto the left to start with a C and to avoid the carving there. 6, the 7 is in place, and the other 6 was moved to just be between the two carved figure there. Here again, another example, and thanks to the sun's rays, we can make out an old mark behind the new one. And this one, a bit strangely, but the new owner of the ship, he has not drawn his figure 9 in the tracks of the old one, just next to the old one, but the shape is exactly the same, okay? And this example is quite funny because now on the hull there, you can guess the presence of a 1 next to the 7, right there. You can see it. Well, once again, this is how the new owner, it took advantage of one shape just to create a new one, okay? So in my opinion, and I will end there, okay, the engraving technique has a lot to do with the success of the style of the fishing figures. I mean, when you can't erase something, and you can't erase something that is so deeply carved into the wood, well, you have to learn to live with it, you have to deal with it, and this is how, according to me, this is one reason why the style spread along the coast. Okay, thank you. This is the end of my slideshow. I hope you've enjoyed this overview, and I'm ready for your questions, if you have any.
Bravo, merci.
Merci, Grendel.
However you pronounce that, I don't know any Breton. I'm sorry. I'm assuming, in fact, that's Breton.
Do I stop to share my screen or not?
Yeah, you can stop sharing, and we can put us back on. And let's see, we have a few questions. So please, people, don't hesitate to drop more questions in the Q&A. We have a little bit of time, so if we have more questions, we can deal with them. All right, let me read the questions, and then I'm going to try to type your answers as you're saying them. So
okay.
A challenge in front of me. We have the first question from Mark, which Snowden has attempted to respond to, but I'll let you answer as well. So Mark asks, what sort of knife tool was used? Was it a filleting knife? Was it a rope knife? It would have been easier to carve curved lines rather than hard straight ones if there was no access to a chisel. I only suggest this as the epigraphic comparisons found in, say, Islamic architecture are all very hard, deep, and straight lines using masonry tools.
Mhm.
Any answers there on the knives, Yoann?
Yes, I have a picture of the knife.
Hmm.
Mhm. And I will try to share with you. Can I share my screen now?
Wait, do it.
Yes,
I don't see it though. There we go. Here we go. Oh, look.
you can see it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure. There were several tools used, not only one kind of knife, because I've tried to experiment myself with carpenters, with I don't know, skills workers, and we tried several things such as chisel, gouge, pocket knife, etc., etc. And each time it's really different because with a pocket knife such as this one, which was handmade by a sailor. I mean, he took the blade and put it into the wood there and add some leather around it, not to cut himself. And it was, according to me, to carve small things. I mean, I didn't say that the registration number has also to be found on every object on board. I mean, the mast, I don't know how to say, I'm a bit lack of vocabulary, but every object like a box, a wooden box, or a fish net, or else has to hold and to display the number to be found. So this kind of knife, I guess, was used just for small things. Okay, but I tried to with some people to carve a registration number. You need to imagine the size of each character, 20 centimeters high, multiply by 4 or 5. You have to do it on both sides of the bow, and you have to carve at the back the name and the home port. Well, it's more than 2 days work, okay, and it's really hard because the wood that was used is oak, okay, and it's just so hard to carve. You don't, no one had the, maybe Popeye, but no one had the strength with a simple blade to carve so deeply in the wood. So I think that sometimes there was some tools, carpenter tools that were used. So chisel, yeah, or a gouge or something more strong, just to bite and to carve the wood.
That's fascinating. And I just, oh man, that little knife was so cool. I love a good
Yeah,
knife
it's a
like that.
beautiful one.
I'm going to wrap all my knives in leather. It's a great tip. Avoid those nasty little cuts.
Mhm.
Okay, let me finish typing this and we'll go on to the next one. Okay, Stephen Coles asks, apologies if you already covered this as I missed a few minutes. Is there any documentation about how the painters or boat owners described these styles? I am curious if they compared the atypical terminals to fishtails or if they simply considered them an evolution of writing in typographic form. Do we know?
We don't know because there is no such literature around this story. Okay, the only pieces of information I have to work with comes from 2 books. Okay, behind me, 2 books, but written in the late 1970s by people who were the first what we call maritime ethnographs in France. Okay, and they were interested in maritime history, and so they quickly did a kind of survey and try to ask to the old sea dogs what was the meaning of this, but we don't have much information. So what I can tell is that there is a kind of tale around a tale, yes, a story, a legend around these figures. Okay,
A
most of
fishy
people,
fishtail,
yes,
right?
most of people now think, when I talk about fishing figures, most people think that there is a kind of superstition behind this, okay? That the round figures such as 3, 5, 6 were good omens, right? It brings fortune and luck on the fish. And the one with a vertical stem, 1, 4, 7, were bad omens. Okay, so you had to disguise. I don't know how to say it, to transform them with extensions, artificial extensions, to make them round. Okay, so this is a oral tradition, but I don't know what is true, what is wrong, because before those year 1970s, I never read a line, a single line about it. Nothing, nothing. So this story, which is a beautiful story, is really recent, okay? And at the time, no, 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 not a single line about this. I don't know. I don't know. What is sure is that uh, fishermen, they don't speak French, most of them. They can't read or write. There were tourist artists in Brittany, so we can also imagine someone, just a tourist, visiting there and who had skills in lettering. Everything is possible. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And there is no photograph of someone doing it. So I'm only working with hypothesis and a lot of pictures. This is the only way to try to understand it for me.
Okay, that's that. I love the little the fish story about the round and the vertical letters. I had no idea that vertical letters were bad luck and that round letters were good luck. Is that
It's because
actually a thing? Anywhere?
sorry,
Is that only for the Breton fishing community, or is that a French superstition, or is it a general superstition that I somehow missed?
no, no, I don't know. I heard that. Well, when the figure is at a rounded bottom, it moves like the waves, and it's kind and nice to the sea. Okay, but when the figures have a vertical stem, it hurts, it attacks the sea.
Oh,
So we have to be nice with the sea if you want to have a good fishing session, if you don't want to die in a hurricane or I don't know. So it's a way to be just kind to the sea, I guess.
I
That's
like
what I heard.
that. Okay, awesome. Next question is from Snowden, who was very active in the chat, by the way. Thank you, Snowden. Snowden asks, says, this lecture is so visually stunning. Can you talk about the sources of these images and the
Yes.
ways in which digitization of visual collections has supported your research?
Wow. This is the, this is the main part of my work, of course, because as I said, there is not a line written on this. I just can't just read and resume and make some abstract. I have to work only with my eyes and with photographs. I see. So there are, I'd say, three kind of sources. Museums in Brittany and everywhere around the world have old photographs, really great uh, photographs. There are negatives, a few daguerreotype, and so on. Well, but there is also another source, which is the postcards, because most of the time those pictures we lost the original. Okay, so the only thing we have left is the reproduction of them. So postcards are also a good, a real huge treasure for me to work with. And finally, I have another last source or way to work, but only with boats that are still alive today in museums also, but they are young boats. I mean, I can't find a boat older than the year 1830s or so on. So sometimes I go with a sheet of paper, and I do a survey of the number when I can. Okay, so I have this kind of way of working, and most of the time I get to the museum or private collection also, because I met hundreds of people who are huge collectioners. I mean, and with my, I don't know how to call a macro lens that I just put on my phone or my camera, and I try to just get as close as possible as things that are just tiny, tiny, tiny on the picture. And sometimes with the naked eye, you can't see this. And with this lens, sometimes you figure out, wow, what is going on there? Why is it this way? And you can read the marks. You can just understand the life of the boat by reading its marks. It's really, really interesting. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I would not actually have thought of postcards, but that's fantastic.
Mhm. Postcards, you can find postcards. It's not, and today museum in France they have a great way of just share their picture in high resolution now. Yeah, I guess this topic, this subject, would have been really hard to do 10 years ago. I think I'm pretty sure about that.
All right, let's see. We got a question here from Daniel Timmerman. Daniel says, do we see this style appearing in any other industries or parts of life, or know who the professionals who were designing these letters were? It seems like if the companies were hiring a professional sign painter, they would be painting non-ships as well. I like that, non-ships. And maybe the style or influence would be visible in other work.
Mm-hmm. This is a path, okay, because I also when I go and study old photographs, I'm not only looking at numbers on the bows, on the hulls, but I also collect every signs on the bar, restaurants, hotels at the same time, just to compare if some letter forms can be found both on the boat and just above a bar, or I don't know, or a hotel, a restaurant, and so on. And most of the time, no. According to me, this style is really to be found only on the boats, and it concerns only the south part of Brittany. It goes south until Les Sables d'Olonne, La Rochelle, and not further. And after that, this is another style that can be found in the Pays Basque, of course, because they had their own way of lettering their boat there. And to the north, above, after Brittany, well, on the Channel coast, there are some interesting things, but nothing to do with fishing figures. So according to me, this is something really, we can say, specific, local. The birth of and the rise of the fishing figure is now quite not easy, but we can say, well, it was born there in this year, and then it spread along the coast by watching pictures and photographs.
Well, that's fascinating. I'm a Basque fan, so I'm going to have to look what's going on in the Basque country.
Mm-hmm. Interesting also. Yeah.
Let's see, we have two more questions, and folks, we still have a little time, so if you have a burning question for Yoann, put it in the Q&A, please. All right, Mark asks, interesting. So if the boat capsized and broke apart, they knew which village or port it belonged to.
Yes, this is a great question, because this registration number, is like the number on the clothes of the soldiers. It means death most of the time, because when well, the sea never brings back the bodies to the families, okay? Only brings parts of rotten wood or a bit of, I mean, canvas. And when you see the number on this piece of wood, well, it means the crew is dead. It means nothing else. So we have a few, I have few books, but novels that speaks about the number in this way. This number is also the unfound body of someone who perished at sea. This is a bit chilling, but
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
but
Woo.
yes, there is a strong relationship between the number and the life and death of the fisherman. Yes, it's true.
Yikes. Gert Jan Slotger asks, is there not any link with the Celtic traditions in Bretagne, especially when they started with Black and Gothic-like typefaces?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? Is there a link?
This is the end of the 19th century. Of course, at the same time, there is what we can call a rise of a Celtic story in Brittany, and yeah, many intellectual people wanted to build back a story for this part of France, and yes, we can say that those two movements, ideas, were there at the same time, but did really um, those ideas went to the ears of the fishermen in Douarnenez, Audierne, Concarneau. I'm not so sure. I can't say. I can't say.
Mm.
But I never saw on a boat. I never saw an emblem such as a triskel, such as an ermine, such as ornament, Celtic ornaments, as we imagine in Ireland or elsewhere. I never saw this kind of I don't know graphic ingredients on the hulls. So I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure.
And pardon my lack of knowledge of Brittany, but were those typical symbols that would be seen in Brittany, in addition to the, Ireland, England? I mean, other Celtic areas like Wales and Ireland stuff.
I guess to me it comes later. I mean, between the two wars, I guess that what we call the pan-Celtic, the idea that Ireland, Cornwalls in England, Brittany, and even Finisterre in Galicia in Spain are all the same territory with the same shared Celtic culture. It it's it arrives a bit later, and I'm not sure it's linked with the fishing figures, but uh, caution. I don't know yet. Maybe.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Let's just pause it there because we don't know. Finally, we have a question from Ajitesh, and sorry if I butchered your name, Ajitesh. Are there any examples of contemporary revivals of these fishing figure styles? Yes, type designers, let's get on this.
Well, not yet. No, I don't think so. Yeah, I found someone who used to sell stencils for the one who wanted to just brown their boat in the old-fashioned way. But that's the only example. No, but I certainly will do such a thing. I don't know. I have to finish my thesis and one work behind after another. But maybe one day, yes, I'll try to just to imagine if it's relevant, if it's interesting to do so, because this is not type design. This is no typeface. Each figure, each character is different one from another, and what can be a closed or I mean fixed shape for digit 4, for example, I don't know, because I met thousands, hundreds of figure 4, which are all different, interesting. And this one comes from Audierne in the early 1880s. This one is from Sainte-Marine 10 years later, and so on. So you'll have to imagine not a super family with hundreds and hundreds of glyphs, just showing, yeah, the multiplicity, the diversity of this lettering to me. But I'll try. I swear,
well,
I'll try.
If only you knew of an international online school of type design where you could learn the skills necessary to digitize this. If only there were such a thing. All right, Yoann, we're looking for your application.
Yeah.
Closes November 6th. Okay, next up we have a question from Mark, who says, reposting question from Charles. Were the same figures used on sales?
Yes, of course. On the sale, the number had to be a bit larger, 1/3 larger in every direction. So it was clear that the registration number was painted in with white oil painting on the sails and on the main sail only, because the sail at the time were dark red, dark brown. Okay, so it was painted on both sides of the main sail, 1/3 larger than the registration on the bow. And according to me, in my opinion, the gendarme, the policeman, the man who was watching and with his glasses just to check who is arriving in the port, who is leaving, he could identify the boat with the number on the sail, not on the hull, because on the hull, 10 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters, and you can't read anything with the remote distance. So what you can read is really the number that is on the sail, just above the water.
Okay,
the only place where this is interesting, because the only place where the size of the number is the same on the sail and on the hull is Sainte-Marine, because they use the same stencil. So it's exactly the same.
Okay. That's interesting. I can imagine that, like, if you were a pirate, you could change the sail easily, but it'd be harder to change the hull, right?
Yes. This is one hypothesis we can make about the carving. Why did they carve the number there in Brittany? And maybe the authorities said to the fishermen, hey, guys, stop changing your numbers. Now you are going to carve it deeply into the wood so that you won't change it. Yeah, this is quite possible to me.
Yeah, and also I can imagine that if the boat sank and was underwater for a long time or something, the painted number might go, but the carving would remain as well.
Yes.
Okay, we got one more question. Oh, two. They keep coming. All right, guys, keep them coming. We can go until 1:30 and then we are done. So let's see. Ajitesh asks, is there any connection with the Tuscan serif style? Given striking similarity between the barbed serif and the bifurcated Tuscan serifs.
Yeah, excellent questions. Thank you. Yeah, Tuscan. In France at the time, yeah, of course, Tuscan has a great was in vogue. We can say it in not only in Paris but in all cities, and even in signs I saw in hotels, restaurants. You can see clearly a sign painted in a way, sometimes with colors and shadows, and it's Tuscan. I don't know what kind of Tuscan it is, but clearly it's a bifurcated serif style. Well, so the link between the fishing figures and the Tuscan is one of my I need to go further, and I need to just check in the edition in the newspapers, the religious publication, the posters at the time, to see in the landscape, the graphical and typographical landscape, those fishermen could have under their nose, just to see if one shape, one letter form could have been a kind of, I don't know, it's not a template, but kind of, yeah, a model or something. Yes, it is interesting. Toscan is really one way to get in this subject, of course, yes.
Okay, still more research is needed. Let's see. Daniel has a question. What was the marking or identification system like on the English Channel Islands where they were arguing over the oyster beds? Did they
Yeah.
have a similar flair for style as the Breton?
Well, the English boats there, they had a complex system because depending on the size of the boat, the letter was before or after the number, okay? The two countries, France and England, they had anticipated some problems of the same letter shared by two ports beginning with the same initial. So Plymouth, for example, was PH, I guess, and I don't know. Well, anyway, the two countries discussed of this, but the fishing figures style can't be found so far away from Brittany in the Channel River, English Channel. So I don't see. I looked at many pictures of English boats, but I can't see something like that. No. It's only really the fishermen. The style follows the road or the path of the fish, which is the sardine fish that comes from the Portugal, then goes up to the Atlantic façade of France, and then goes to the Bay of Douarnenez, and then goes back. So the circulation, the path of the fishing figures is in fact the path of the road of the fish. And in the north, well, maybe I don't know everything, but I never saw anything like that in England, in Belgium, in Netherlands. I never saw anything like that.
So it really is confined to the Breton coast and just a little bit above and below.
Yes, this is it.
All right, one last question, perhaps we have possibly the last question. Paul says, is there still nowadays people using this kind of letters in that region? No?
It's
Oh, no.
forbidden.
What?
It's forbidden because this style, I mean, I don't know exactly why, but in the years in the 1960s, well, I mean, with the birth of Europe, the community, I guess politicians said, well, all the boats now need to be marked in the same way. So it was the end of the fishing figures. Well, anyway, it was the end of much earlier. Boats were not the same anymore. It was metal hulls, and so now you can't really use fishing figure except for one thing, which are vintage boat. And if you want, I will share you something. Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So can you see this? You
Not
can
yet.
see the slide?
Not yet.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I tried myself. I told you with some good friends from an association called Trésor. Trésor in Breton means ferryman, le passeur, and they built vintage boats. I mean, wooden boats. And each time, well, I try to understand the origins of the letter forms, working with a sculptor or a carpenter, and we are just reproducing the gestures in the wood. So for those boats, vintage boats, they have a certification, I don't know how to say, a label, a patrimonial label or something. And so we are allowed as a decoration. It's not really a registration number, but it's only a decoration on the boat. We are allowed to mark it in the old-fashioned way. So I draw this one with some friends. D21, Meet Joséphine in Douarnenez.
I'm sorry, we can't see it, but we
Ah,
can imagine. Yeah.
no, you can't see it. I'm sorry.
No.
What have I done?
Oh, well,
Mm.
it's okay.
Boy.
But that's terrible. But God, everything is going to be, Helvetica from now on, right? Oh, here we go. Oh
Okay.
man, it's beautiful.
Oh,
Look
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So here is, okay, this
yeah,
is,
we see it.
yes.
Aw.
So sometimes on these boats, we are allowed to use the style, but it's not a registration number. It's only a decoration on it.
Okay. Well,
That's it.
it's lovely.
Mm.
We got a comment here. Ajitesh's comment from Maya. Isn't the fish D used in the current logo of the city of Douarnenez?
Yes, it was until 2008, I think, but it was the logo of Douarnenez for 20 years. Yeah, between 1991 and yeah, the early years. So yeah, it means that I guess that in the mind and the art of the people there, of those maritime cities, even if the fishing industry is completely dead, okay, now there is nothing else, well, only tourism and other things, but those figures, those signs, they are still in the art and in the eyes of the people. And this is quite interesting because those fishermen, I guess they didn't know that they were inventing branding for their cities. They were inventing a kind of a graphic identity, which was strong and about to live more than 1 century. So yeah, it's quite it's a strong character, strong monograms to me.
That's actually really great that it lasts as part of the visual identity of the city, even though the industry may be defunct, which I'm sorry to hear, or and the figures are now forbidden to go on a ship, but
still
hey,
there.
the visual identity of the city, or at least it was until 2008 when they adopted Arial as their font. Okay, I think that's it.
That's it.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to talk about a small book if people are interested, because I'm going to just publish in a publishing house in Germany, which is called Poem. You see them? And if you are interested in this topic, you can just go to their website. I don't know if you see the website there. Maybe you can send the link, Grendel, if you want to.
Yeah, Skilla has already dropped that.
Okay, thank you, Skilla. Because yeah, by the end of the month or maybe early November, you can just find this small book in the collection, which is pamphlet collection there on poemsedition.com. Thank you for them. Jérôme Knebusch and Alice Savoy are editors, publishers of this publishing house. You can register to the newsletter and be kept in touch.
Congratulations on the upcoming book, Yoann. We look forward to reading it. All right, we have to wrap up, folks, but we will see everybody on Halloween for a very special talk about Pueblan black letter. Merci encore, Yoann.
C'est
And
moi qui vous remercie. À bientôt.
thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Ciao,
Ciao.
Brenda. Ciao.